everyone. Welcome back to another episode of AI Más, where I is spelled like AI because we're talking about AI. I'm taking the jargon out of the conversation and we're just talking about how people are using AI to positively affect their lives. So join me, your host, Andrea or Karina Perez, on this journey. Thank you to everyone that has liked and shared and subscribed. It means a lot to me. I also read everything that you write to me in regards to the podcast. And today I'm going to read something that someone wrote to me. So this person's handle is Mo Money, Mo Stuff. And they said, I loved the comparison of using AI to help us in our jobs being lazy is like saying using a camera instead of painting by hand is lazy. Skills are required for all of the above. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, again, AI is just a tool and we're just here to learn about how people are using it to either make their lives easier, to create, or to use it in their jobs. So again, thank you for joining me. Let's get started. I'm really excited for you all to listen to today's guest. He is someone that is super funny, super down to earth. We had such a big laugh right before the episode started. And he asked me what my audience is looking for. And I told him that we are just really breaking down the technology so that it's very simply put. We're just talking about it like a tool, like the tool that it is, and how people are using it. And I mentioned that people in the Latin community can sometimes be like, no me hables de eso. I don't want to know about that. It's scary. It's going to take our jobs or whatever. So I told him to just think about those people and just kind of make it very light and simple. And he was like, great, I'll talk like I'm talking to my Filipino aunties. And so that's exactly the energy I want to have for this podcast. It's just like we're talking to our aunties about this technology and how it's a tool. So he's really great. He used to be a teacher and now he is learning strategist at Synthesia. Please welcome our guest today, Kevin Alster. Hello there. Can I have you say your full name and pronouns, please?
Sure. My name is Kevin Alster. I go by he, him.
All right, great, perfect. So, Kevin, I want us to start by you telling us just who you are and what you've been up to. I know that you started out as a classroom teacher and now you're a learning strategist. So, tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah, so let's take it back to a long time ago to when I was a wee kid. No, I'm just joking. So I will start out. I think my interest, professional interest and personal interests have always been around video. I think growing up, I was always interested in creating videos, stop motion, using my camcorder with my brother to create stop motion videos. And that kind of evolved into a love of videos, media, and just creativity in general. I think the sad news is that I found out in my undergraduate education that creativity and being an English major doesn't pay the bills, and it's not going to. So naturally, I chose to go into teaching. And so I was teaching. I went from Atlanta to Helena, Arkansas, so a town of about 8,000 people right on the Mississippi River. And I taught kindergarten. And while I was there, definitely learned a lot, not just about myself, but little people and how they learn. And among other things, really a life education there. But I saw that a big part of the curriculum there and how we taught kids was through computer-assisted instruction. So by that, I mean computer programs that the kids would be on while I was teaching small groups reading. So if I had 10 kids sitting at my table, what would 10 of the other students be doing? They would be on computers playing math games or reading games, learning how to read and write and do basic math. I think I had this after 4 years of teaching, I had this moment where I looked over at their computers, and it took me honestly 4 years to get there because I wasn't as strong of a teacher when I started out. But then as you get better, you can kind of pick your head up. As I kind of looked at what kids were actually doing, were they actually learning on these computer games? And I remember sharing headphones with a student, and she was supposed to be, adding up equations by dropping, putting blue dots into a bucket or something like that. And she was not doing the math exercise. Instead, she was clicking on the blue button because it made kind of like a DJ noise. And she just wanted to hear that sound 30 times over. And so I was like, she was making music. She was being creative. But, as a teacher, you kind of hear that and you say like, oh, students aren't learning in a way that we're measuring. And so that kind of triggered my interest to study instructional technology and media and figure out how we learn through media instruction and learning that's mediated through technology. So it could be watching videos online, it could be taking online courses, it could be participating in an online class, but where there's a piece of technology in front of the person and whatever they're trying to learn. And I'll kind of speed it up. So from there, I got through the people that I met at school and through my jobs, I was connected with the School of the New York Times, which was just getting started, I think back in 2016. And so I had this really cool opportunity to teach people VR storytelling with the NYT VR team, which was a cool technological example of the time of how you teach people through storytelling and through technology. And
Hello, I'm here just to explain a little bit about what VR is, because I know when you just use letters, people might have trouble catching what it is. So VR is virtual reality. And I went to ChatGPT and I asked it to explain to me what VR is very simply. And this is what it said. Virtual reality is a technology that lets you wear special equipment, like a headset, to see and feel like you're inside a different world that's not really there. It tricks your senses into believing you're somewhere else, even though you're still in the same place in reality. Okay, so then I asked ChatGPT to tell me what it knows about VR storytelling at the School of the New York Times, and this is what it says. As of my last update in September 2021, the New York Times had collaborated with organizations like Google to create VR experiences for storytelling. They launched a program called NYT VR to deliver immersive news content to readers. Okay, that's really cool. So definitely, yeah, a lot of storytelling and using technology.
then from there, I decided I wanted to explore more in the corporate space. So I shifted into corporate learning. And then finally, from there, I made a move to Copenhagen, where a company found me called Synthesia, where now we help others develop learning by using AI avatars and helping people make video better.
Yeah, and I've seen some of those videos, and I'm excited to get into that and talk about that. So,
Sure, absolutely.
so tell us more about what you're doing at Synthesia and what exactly they do and what you do for them.
Sure. So I wear two hats. One of them is to head up Synthesia Academy, which is for people who want to learn how to make training videos or how to make videos better or useful content, and also for people to learn how to use the product. And I think what's important here is that the product allows you to essentially create videos in your browser instead of having to get on camera like we are now and maybe rent a studio and get a microphone. Instead, you can just kind of type in your message, hit generate, and you can make a talking head video.
Talking head video is just, if you're on YouTube, it's literally just this. It's just, like from shoulders up, someone speaking into a camera.
And so you can imagine this takes all of the effort and some of the fear of being on camera and recording yourself and just making it so that if you have a message that needs to be in video, you can create that quickly. Now, why the Academy exists, and I think this is very important, is to keep in mind with any technology, and especially with AI, is just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. Meaning, just because you can create more video doesn't mean you should be doing that. Instead, it's a big part of the academy is not teaching people how to use the product or about the technology behind AI avatars. It's how do you find out who your audience is? How do you design around a single topic or skill for your video? So again, teaching people how to make video better. So Synthesia Academy is kind of one hat that I wear. The other hat, and I think this is maybe a bit more relevant for this audience, is I'm on a larger mission at the moment to educate folks in the learning and development space, but also kind of, I guess, the non-technical population at large, how large language models and AI is going to impact the future of learning and work. Because I think at this point now, after ChatGPT has rolled out and people have gotten past the prompts, there's a lot of folks who don't understand what the technology can do, and they are really uncertain about what it means for their job and their livelihood. And so I do a lot of talks and interviews and about what does the data actually say? What is the research that's being conducted? And what are examples that people who are non-technical are part of a non-technical audience, how they can start to make sense of what's happening with this piece of technology?
Which is perfect, which is exactly lined up with what we're trying to do with IMAS. So that's great to hear. So when you say that you create video content, let's get down to the exciting part of parts that I've seen in your video and
Yeah.
how is Synthesia using the AI in
Mm. Hmm.
in the video
So
creation.
sure. So I think there's definitely a couple things that we can pick apart there because I think when we talk about AI technology, it's kind of this huge, scary umbrella. So I think it's good to say, I think a good way to explain it is that it's used to turn text. So something that you type in, take that text, understand the context of what it's saying, give that text a voice so that you can have
Mhm.
an AI generated voice that sounds like a human being, and then at the same time take that text and map that on and have a human face kind of animate and talk through what's happening in the text. So essentially what you do is you type in the script as the person, you hit a
Mhm.
button, and out you get a talking head video that looks like somebody is in a studio on a camera speaking to you, maybe slightly less than news broadcaster quality, although we've had news channels already using Synthesia to create
Mhm.
video content, which I think is both exciting and both scary depending on your perspective. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's essentially how Synthesia is using AI. I personally use AI very differently. I
Mhm.
use AI in very different ways. I think the most common use case is I like to use it to help me figure out what content is going to be useful for my audience, because a lot of what I do is a combination of both live video, so using myself to create YouTube videos and tutorials to help people make video better and faster, but also I use my AI avatar to create courses and announcements and kind of bring people the news. And so I use AI pretty much at every step of the day, in as much as planning out, sometimes I'll get stuck in a rut and I might just say, hey, in ChatGPT or another large language model, hey, I have these tasks to complete in the next 3 hours. Can you suggest a schedule for me? Because I'm one of
Mm.
those people who has a hard time focusing. And so I use it for a
I feel
lot
you.
of really non-work related tasks, just life tasks. Give me a recipe,
Mhm.
help me,
Done
make
that
this
too.
better. I'm writing an invitation. Recently, I found myself writing a wedding invitation. Not going
Huh?
to write the whole thing in ChatGPT, but sometimes it helps us just to have that structure to get started. So I really use it at every point in my life, and it's been a journey to get there. But AI has been a big help for me, particularly tools like ChatGPT and large language models.
Okay, a few questions have come to mind. So, when you're talking about you just put in the text and then out comes out a voice and a face.
Yes.
Oh, h- how are you getting, or is it able to capture diverse voices and faces?
Mm-hmm.
And if it is, where did it get their learning data? If you know
Mm-hmm.
that,
Yeah.
yeah.
So this is such a good question, and I'm so glad you asked it because people don't often ask how do these avatars get made. They just want to, play around with them. So the where the technology starts is essentially we take footage that has been recorded in a studio, and it starts off with a real live person where you record. You always have, whenever you have AI, you always need to train up that AI on data. And so what happens is you take the data, you plug it into, you put it all together and you plug it into a model, and it outputs something that is, let me back it up a second because I realize I'm getting very
Okay,
technical. So essentially,
it's okay.
we have data sets that are created from, imagine video footage of tons and tons of different people, live people, where they've come into a studio and with a camera,
Mhm.
they said, okay, based off of this footage, we're able to say this is what a human face looks like. We're able to say this is what the mouth does when it's saying certain words. We're able to say how do the eyebrows move when certain expressions are made. And so that's the visual component where you have all this training data that is then used to output a model that says this is how humans look when they speak or express themselves. And
Okay.
so that's the foundation of the video part. The audio part is done the same way, where it's taking audio samples and saying, okay, based off of how these words are interpreted by the model, this is what we expect them to sound like based off the context of the sentence that they're in, how we know words are constructed. So it's essentially looking at lots of conversations and lots of video footage and putting out a face and a voice. Now, the question of the actors that come in, we actually record. We have a series of, I want to say we have at this point about 160 AI avatars who are models of real people who you can use when you type in your script, you hit generate video, and it outputs the output is a talking head video with one of those 160 or so models. And so it's such an interesting concept to tackle, this idea of representation. And so you can't, because we need an in-person model to represent each type of person, we really need to find a diverse set of people. So our studio is based in London, and you can imagine you want to be in a major metropolitan city so that you can capture someone with a hijab, you can capture different skin tones and colors, you can capture different body types, you can capture, I know a big thing when we were creating models is capturing big hair, capturing curls. That is a huge challenge for the current state of the technology because, I'm going to start motioning with my hands, but essentially what you do is you record somebody on a green screen. And so what it does is it outlines the person in the footage and separates all that's green. And so for those of you who are listening, you're like, I'm tracing my body all around and I'm making a cutout of myself. And that's the input data that goes into a model. Now, when you start adding small details like curly hair or big hair, you start introducing small complexities in the shape of the model. It's harder to capture each little detail of curl
even like
versus
braids.
Braids, locks. And so the models that have been created so far, they started out all with hair that was pinned back, or the avatars had the models or the actors had to be very still when they were being recorded. But now the technology has gotten better that we've got folks with big hair, big braids, extensions, locks, curls. And I think that's kind of where in this AI avatar space, because there's a lot of companies that are starting to emerge, I think it's something that I'm proud of is that our company is taking those steps to actively portray real people, not these, picture perfect models that people, when you're watching video or people on TV, we're really trying to capture diverse body types and looks and styles of dress and different cultures. So it's an interesting space to be in. And then to add a little bit more, this is where it gets super interesting, and what I get passionate about is,
tell me,
it's so interesting to all these avatars can speak in up to 160 different languages. And so
that's where I was
they're
about
all
to go.
dialects there's all kinds of dialects of Arabic. There's all different dialects of Spanish. And then you start to think about, there's also the tone and the delivery. Do you want this to be cheerful? Do you want this to be a younger voice? And so kind of a big challenge is, how do you find the right person to represent the content that you want for your audience? What will they feel comfortable hearing? And then what is the right voice, language, dialect, delivery? That's the other piece. So how do you use a video face and an audio voice and pair those two together to make a video that really captures what you're trying to talk about?
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So in episode 1, I discussed this a little bit with my guest, and we were discussing how hard it is to get anything that does voice to text to recognize Spanglish. So anything, if we're talking in English and then we drop something in Spanish, it's always
Yeah.
like, it says something random. Like his podcast is Quien tú eres, and it would be like kick the something. It would just be something completely random. And so,
Yes.
is there Spanglish?
There is not. It's so funny you mention that. So yeah, I think you have the ability. So the way that it works is you provide the script, right? So you provide the script and you drop that into the script box, and it will auto detect the language for you. Now, if you were to put in Spanglish, I think because there's two languages being represented in the script, the technology is not there yet to parse that apart and to say, look, 98% of this is in English, and then we got some 2% Spanish.
Yeah.
It can get there eventually, but at the technology in its current state, it's a little tough. Yeah.
Okay. And then I guess one little concern I guess I can think of when I hear about these things is how then are we making sure that not only is the representation is there visually and auditorily, but I don't know if that's a word, but I used it, but also just to represent a culture, right? So again, I know we just talked about the Spanglish aspect of it, but like even just, yeah, I guess I have two concerns and I'm thinking of the second one already. But
Sure.
this is the first one. The first one is about like, how can you really represent a culture and making sure that it's not all just like, here's a training video and da da da. And,
Yeah.
and it's not just like, hey, what's up, everybody? We're here to learn about, da, da, da. Like maybe that's a style that I want, right? I want it to be more
Yeah.
chill. I want it to be more for my friends rather than
Yes.
a corporate setting. And then my
Yeah.
second thought was, then does that mean then a room full of like old white men can make videos for, if you can succeed in doing that, does that mean
Yes.
that then a room full of like old white men can make a video for
Yeah.
the Latinx community in the US and then not pay
Yes.
one Latino or Latina or
Yes.
Latina,
Yes.
or not even have to pay anyone to do consulting or modeling or any of that. That's where my brain goes.
Okay. So I think the first question, the first thought or the first question, I think is a little bit simpler. So I'll definitely start there, and then we can talk about the second one because it's such a juicy ethical question. The first answer is that given the state of the technology of AI technology and AI video, I think it is best served for instructional and informational content. So to kind of give you a frame of reference, things that would fit really well with an AI avatar and video is an airplane safety briefing. Like I see the flight attendants get up every single time and I'm just like, guys, like nobody has been watching for a while. I'm so sorry. That is a video that could be put in everybody's headrest, and it could be the presenter of that video, where it's like, look at the exits, here you are, this is important, etc., etc. But here's where it gets crazy: is that it could look at what your preferred language is, and it could deliver that video to each person in the language they prefer. Anyway, that's just what's cool about AI. I think also with instructional content, you're right in that different audiences expect a different type of delivery. For example, executive leaders versus frontline workers might expect a different tone and style of delivery. And so given the current state of the technology, I think this is where it's up to you as a creator to decide. And it's something that I do all the time. Is this best served with my live self? Because I want to capture that engagement, that excitement. I want to engage directly with my audience. So I'll create a live video versus, hey, I need to create a video that is going to be watched by 1,000 new employees every month. And I want to make sure that it consistently answers the same questions for this type of person. And so you're not going to be concerned, I think, as about having such an effusive or emotional tone, but instead you're going to say, okay, this is information that folks need to know. And that's actually a limit. There's a limit at the moment on what types of content you can create, because it does get into kind of an ethically questionable area if you're making marketing videos and you're stating things as fact, but it looks like a real video, versus if you're just doing training content and informational content, that's a lot safer for the types of videos that are being produced. So I think that's tackling the first question. Now, the second question that you asked is so interesting, because you're right. It's if you could be anyone at a keyboard, now you could represent anyone else. And to use your example, can old white men create a video of a Latina female? And so this is a question that I think about a lot, because on one hand, and I think there's no simple answer. I'll just put it that way. I think on one hand, let's say you have a product team that's composed of 10 engineers who are white Asian males who have a product that teaches people to marketing skills, and they want to make kind of training and informational course, and their product does that. But they know that their audience, they're looking at their data and they see that their demographic is a primarily Latin audience. So therefore, it's kind of like, what are the constraints that, this is tricky. Just because they can, should they? Like, what should they do? Should they find the resources, raise money, and hire somebody to better talk to their audience and create this content and hire a Latin creator? Or what should they prioritize? If they don't know that this content is really going to work with the audience, how could they test it? Well, could they test it with a Latin presenter and see how it goes? I think the only way to really safeguard ourselves against people creating content for, for people, the only safeguards we have for people creating bad content malinformed content is to know kind of what to be having these conversations and to think about what those ethical dilemmas are, because I think for us as creators, it depends on what is your goal. Is your goal to kind of match your audience with what they would expect to see and what would help you deliver your message, your hopefully useful message to them clearly? Or do you go, really do the right thing, which is to make sure that people aren't missing out on opportunities or being harmed by the content that you create? So I think it depends on the individual goal, but I think the fundamentals of this are people having these conversations where, what does it look like to create essentially deep fake videos in your context and to do that responsibly?
Right. What I hope happens from these conversations too is that more people from these communities get involved in AI, and if you want content made for the Latinx community in the US specifically, then these are some agencies you can contract, and they are built by Latinos with the context, with the models, with the having something for people to think about.
I think when you mentioned that, an example came to mind that I think it's very clear cut when we think about, a boardroom of white folks creating content with a brown face. I think I would hope that that's pretty basic knowledge that is a bad idea. But if we look at something maybe a bit more nuanced, I think it's a better example to talk about kind of the creator's dilemma. Like, let's say that you're working in healthcare and you are a white nurse serving a mostly brown population, mostly Black or Latino population, and your target audience in particular is new mothers, and you want to create training content that kind of coaches them on kind of best practices of how to and I realize I'm talking way out of my depth, but the content here is how to best take care of yourself as you're going, what to expect when you're expecting. And so if they wanted to create content and get that out quickly, it's like, I have, let's say, 5 moms who are in their first trimester. I want to send them out, quick, timely little bits of content that will help them make sense of what's happening. The nurse might not speak Spanish, but she can get it translated. She can put that into a video platform like Synthesia, hit generate video, and she can choose to have an avatar that looks like someone who would help that particular audience digest that information in a more trustful way. And so it's like, should she be making the videos? Should she hire a Latin creator to ensure that she's responsibly creating those videos?
Yeah. I feel like that's a much more nuanced situation, especially because she's trying to create some content to help the community, and not really sell them anything, unless she turns those videos into like, buy this product at the end of it. Like, that's
like and
different.
subscribe.
Yeah. but I do think, I think it's very different if it's used as a marketing tool to target, whether it's brown and Black folks or the poor or children. I know that people market for children all the time, and I don't know. I mean, we're not going to hire children to to become consultants, but I mean, it's just it's a conversation that's ongoing, really, and it's a good point to bring up. But I mean, if that nurse is out there, do it, because that sounds great. Trying to help.
Exactly. I think what's different about now than before is, and this could be whether you're talking about tools like ChatGPT or Synthesia, where it's easier to take your idea and turn that into something, it's kind of, I think if we talk at like a broader level, it's giving people the ability to create videos and content that they couldn't before. So a good example is like when everybody got a phone with a camera, suddenly everybody became video creators if they wanted to, where they could, and there's a lot of bad that came out of that, where it's people creating bad content that makes people feel bad about themselves on social media. But it
Right.
also kind of brought into light what's happening with police and just Black Americans, brown Americans in general. Now we have that video footage. So there's the good and the bad that comes with a piece of tech. And I think when it comes to AI generated video, it's that same thing where the technology itself is not inherently bad. It's the
Correct.
people who are creating the content or their intent that makes it a good use case or a bad use case.
Which is kind of my whole point for this podcast, is to get people to think about it. It's just a tool, and
Yeah,
it depends on how we use it.
exactly.
And yeah.
Exactly. And I heard a good quote that I think is applicable, which is that the technology is getting is getting better at being technology, meaning it's doing more for us, it's supporting more about the way we think, and it's helping us create the things that we want to more easily. And so what does that mean for people? It's, and I'm paraphrasing. This is not my own brain coming up with this. This is it's killing me because I can't remember who said it. But as the tech is getting better at becoming the technology, the humans need to become better at being humans. And I think
I
that
love
is,
that. You
and
gotta find
that's,
that and send it to me.
yeah, I'll send that to you right after this.
Okay, so we forgot to follow up with each other about this quote, but I looked up some positive quotes about AI and humanity, and I found these three that I think were nice. So let me read them to you. So Sabine Howard, the co-founder of RoboHub.org, said, "Robots are not going to replace humans. They're going to make their jobs much more humane. Difficult, demeaning, demanding, dangerous, dull. These are the jobs robots will be taking," which I love. I hope that happens, and I hope that people have more room for creativity. Okay, and then John Hagel said, "If we do it right, we might be able to evolve a form of work that taps into our uniquely human capabilities and restores our humanity. The ultimate paradox is that this technology may become a powerful catalyst that we need to reclaim our humanity." Mm. And then Amit Ray, the pioneer of compassionate AI movement, said, "The coming era of artificial intelligence will not be the era of war, but be the era of deep compassion, nonviolence, and love."
But it's essentially, what that means is the technology is going to continue to grow and be better for our lives. But what that means for us humans is us having more empathy, us understanding more about what humans want and the way we interact, and kind of stepping outside ourselves. And rather than trying to focus on, there are people who are working on building the next thing. I think as we get access to more of these free and usable tools, it's up to us to figure out how to use them responsibly and to continue to have these human to human conversations about them.
That's a great segue to my next question, which is, has AI made your, like, how has AI changed your life? Has it made your life easier? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So this is a moment where I get on my soapbox and say that AI has been making all of our lives easier in many ways, whether that's, the recommendations that you get on Netflix, it's, your Google searches. So AI is nothing, AI is nothing new. It's just been in our lives this whole time. I think, how has it made my life easier? Well, one of my biggest use cases is I'm constantly learning for work, especially about technical concepts I don't understand, often about large language models or AI, because that's the nature of my work right now. And I think I've heard people say that ChatGPT is your thinking buddy. I would push them to think even further and say that ChatGPT is it's about learning. It's about actually chatting with a large language model. It's about having a discussion and dialogue. So and let me just back it up and say, the answer to your question, how's AI made my life easier? I learn things a lot faster. So I think the old way of, if you wanted to learn something new, like let's say you wanted to learn data analysis, and you're coming from a non-technical background. In the past, you might have gone into Google and said, like, what is data analysis? And then maybe you'll get like a Wikipedia article, maybe a bunch of blog posts that don't tell you much, maybe a research paper you don't understand.
Hours and
Well,
hours of YouTube videos.
exactly. Yes, I can't believe I forgot to mention that, because that's where a lot of where I learned from is YouTube. But
Yeah.
I use AI a lot for what I call learning at speed. And so an example of this is I was recently traveling, and one of the places I was stopping by was Istanbul. And Istanbul is, it's all I knew about it is this wonderful place where Eastern and Western civilization united in the city, and there's a lot of complex history that's in this very mixed city, but I knew nothing about it. And I had a couple of days before I went, and what large language models allow me to do is to ask questions and kind of get answers in a conversational way, but in a way that I prefer to learn. So, for example, I love Planet Earth. I love Morgan Freeman. And so I said, hey, give me a Planet Earth style guide to Istanbul, narrated by Morgan Freeman. Give me dates and facts. And every now and then I want to ask Morgan Freeman questions. And so then it starts generating, the conversation where it's, let me take you back long, long ago to the year 400. And so it's that type of tone where it's like, hey, this is how I prefer to take in information. After I got the fundamentals, I'm then able to ask questions to Morgan Freeman, like, hey, I noticed that there were Jewish stars, Morgan. What's in Istanbul? What is the deal with that? Oh, that's actually the Spanish Jews who came, in this time. And I'm able to actually have a
Oh, that's so
conversation and
cool. I'm like, oh,
explore my
wait, tell me more
curiosity.
about that.
So, yeah, exactly.
Oh my
They're
God.
called the Ladinos,
Yeah,
Ladino,
los
and
Latinos.
definitely check them out. Yeah.
They're here in
Yeah,
Spain. Yeah.
exactly. So that's another podcast, another conversation.
Yeah.
But to
Another,
take it
another,
back,
another time.
but to take it back, that's what it has done for me. It says, okay, this is what I'm curious about. Give me a starting point, and then let's have a conversation. Let me follow my curiosity in a dialogue based way where I can say, oh, this sultan was killed in the palace in this 1459. Like, let me talk to that person. Hey, like, what were your biggest concerns at that time? And then it reaches back in history and like makes a
Yeah.
story. And so you can really follow your curiosity in a fun way.
What are you using to make that, to do that?
So this is just ChatGPT. If you can download it on your phone, and
Okay.
then I'm just looking at my phone right now. I forget the I'd be happy to share, the prompts that
Yeah.
I typed in. But yeah,
But
if you're
even just
looking
to
for a
like
place
hear
to
the
get started.
voice.
Oh, to hear the voice. So that depends. Is sometimes you might put that into a tool like Synthesia, where it's text to voice, or
Okay.
there's other companies like 11 Labs where you can do text to video, text to voice. But that's kind of what's upcoming next, is that idea of putting a human face and voice on live chat. That's not something that any company has released to people yet, but I know that a lot of companies are exploring that right now and are beta testing that. Can we talk live to someone who has a GBT integration?
Yeah, that's cool. I know I've seen that as an example on Conmigo. I'm not sure if you've heard or
Yes.
seen Conmigo, but basically it's yeah, it's similar to Chat GPT, but it's specifically for students. And then the students are able to ask a person from history or even a person from a book.
Yes.
I think the example that they used was talking to, I already went blank on the name,
I
from
think it was
The
John
Great
Locke.
Gatsby.
Oh, great. Jay Gatsby. Yeah.
Yeah, Jay Gatsby. Yeah. So it asked, oh, I don't remember what the question was, but it asked a question to the character from a book, from a novel, and
Yeah,
then the chat responded like they were that character, and then it helped the
exactly.
student write an essay.
Exactly. I think you bring up such a great point, which is that AI, what's different about now than before is you can use AI in so many different roles. You can use large language models as your teacher. You could use them as a coach. You could use them, if you're a teacher, as the student who always gets the answers wrong. You could use it to play thinking about a training scenario. You can use it to simulate two different people where it's a conversation between an employee and their manager, and these are the characteristics they have. And so it really is giving I won't say a voice yet because that's a separate piece of tech, but it's giving a story and roles to things that are hard for us normally to figure out how to talk to.
Right. Okay, my last two questions that I always ask are, what are your concerns for the future of AI? And then after that, we'll talk about your hopes.
Sure. So can I start with the hopes? Because I think it's always good to start there. Or should we
No,
take it?
you want to
All right.
you want the bad news first, and then
Okay. Sure. So my concerns for the future of AI are, this goes back to what I mentioned before, is that one is there's a lot of fear and misunderstanding about what AI enabled technology can do. By that, I mean, for example, large language models. I know that when people type something into ChatGPT, they immediately thought, oh, this is going to take my job because it can write an email. I think my concern there is that if you understand, even at a high level, how the technology works in a way that you can understand how it works properly, you would know that it's not anywhere near the place where it can take your job, but instead it's just trying to have a conversation with you and trying to interpret what you asked and what you're talking to it about, and then put the next word that makes the most sense into something that you as a human can read and understand. And all it wants is for you to say, yes, you understood me and that was a good thing, or no, you didn't. And so already, hopefully that just kind of took your, if you're feeling anxious about AI, that kind of made your shoulders drop a little bit. So the first step is to combating that is educating yourself. There's plenty of articles, and you can ask ChatGPT to explain it to you as if you were 9 years old. And but my concern is that a lot of people don't understand the technology, and so therefore they get scared of it and they don't want to use it.
Yeah.
The other piece of this is also what I mentioned about bad actors. The technology allows us to create things that are more realistic. It allows us to create things faster. And I'm concerned that will lead to just more junk and more noise, because there's already plenty out there. It's hard to figure out what's real and fake on social media. Well, that gets even worse when we start to introduce AI avatars and, all people who have malintent to create this stuff faster and make it look better and more realistic. So that's my concern for the future of AI.
Yeah. Those are very similar to my own as well. Definitely the people not using it because they're afraid of it. I really don't want our communities left behind because they just were afraid to even look at it or hear about it or touch it or anything. So
can I make a quick suggestion? And this is an idea that came up on a recent interview, which was, I think when people hear ChatGPT, it's like, I don't know what to use it for. And I think the best place to start is figure out maybe one or two things that you would do in your daily life. Maybe two options, two homework assignments, so we can give homework to your, this is the kindergarten teacher me talking, but if we can give homework assignments to your listeners, one is start with having it plan, if you're you're traveling somewhere, have it help you make a packing list and give it and this is in ChatGPT, type in, make me a packing list. I'm going on this trip. I'm going to this place, and have it make you a checklist so that at the very least, you don't have to think of all the things, do I have my extra charging battery? Do I, have travel size toothpaste because I'm traveling internationally and I can't have, liquids there. You're accessing the knowledge of everything up until 2021. And so it's going to have an answer for you. And then the next suggestion I have is, I know everybody struggles with developing good habits. Have it come up with a schedule. If there's a goal that you have, maybe it's to exercise more, rather than scrolling through YouTube and looking for the right influencer and the right video who's going to help you, make you hopefully feel better about your body or kind of get yourself into a new habit. Instead, have ChatGPT suggest 3 different versions of a workout schedule and tell it how much time you have every day. Like, it's going to try and do its very best to figure out what you want so that you can give it a thumbs up or not.
You can even have it, I've done this for meal prepping, is Have it like break
Yes.
it down into a chart. All right, now make this into a chart where it's like Monday through Sunday and give me breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I think even like snacks
Yeah.
that were in there. And then it's in a chart, which is more visually helpful for me. Because if I'm just
Mhm.
getting a lot of text or a long list, that doesn't help. So you can even ask it to make it into a chart. So
And Andre, to add on to that, then once you're done with that chart, have it generate you a grocery list and
yeah.
figure out, say like, hey, what can I get at the, tell me what I need to pick up at the grocery store. And then boom, that's a note for you to put on your iPhone and head to the grocery store next time.
Right. Right. Yeah. All right. So what are your hopes?
What are my hopes? My two biggest hopes are that I think the two biggest places for potential are democratize, everybody having access to education
Mm-hmm.
and healthcare. And so when I think about in particular, I don't expect my kindergarten students in Arkansas to be using ChatGPT just yet. I think they should get a little bit older before they have access to an internet browser. But I'm thinking about when I was teaching we had summer school instruction where all the students were there, and just seeing the state of textbooks. It's like they're either outdated, old, or completely destroyed. There were no
Mm-hmm.
resources for students to even begin to explore their curiosity. And so I think this is a tool that arms them, shares kind of the knowledge that has not been accessible and information that has not been accessible to certain communities. They now have access to that through conversation. They can ask any question they want into ChatGPT. It'll be as kind to them, as patient. It'll serve them up resources.
Mm-hmm.
It'll give them access to books. It'll help them, give them suggestions on, pursuing the projects that they want to make, or they can ask the questions that will help them really explore their curiosity, rather than what thought I was teaching, which was an extremely structured, rigid curriculum that didn't
Yeah.
really allow kids to explore as much. And so I think that idea of access, and you can ask it to give you homework, you can ask it to give you projects, you can have conversations with book characters. This is really what I see for education. And then when it comes to healthcare, I get excited about AI because I think we still rely a lot on human interpretation to
Mm-hmm.
understand what's going on with with vast sums of data. And so there have been a lot of breakthroughs recently, not recently, but there's always going to be breakthroughs with how AI can interpret and forecast if somebody's going to have a disease or not,
Yeah.
well, before a human can even spot that, because it
Mm-hmm.
understands the trends based off of x-rays and things that it sees. So
Yeah.
those are my two biggest hopes: is democratizing education and just making healthcare workers' lives a little bit easier, so that
Oh
maybe
my
they can
gosh.
focus
Yes, they
on the
need it.
human part of things. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I did see something recently about how AI, I think, was diagnosing people, I think with diabetes it was. I could be wrong, but
Mm-hmm.
it was able to diagnose people with a super high accuracy
Mm-hmm.
versus the humans. And then when humans had AI as an assistant, it stayed the same. Their accuracy stayed just as low as it was before. And when
Mm-hmm.
they looked into that, they saw it was because the humans using the AI ignored the AI and the suggestions that
Exactly.
the AI gave, and then made their decision anyway. And then it was not accurate. So the AI was able to accurately find that diagnosis.
And you bring up a good point there, which is that the technology also has limitations, where I think these tools what I'm excited that they allow us to do now is that AI an AI plus a human is better than AI by itself or a human by itself. And so we're kind of entering this new era where we are really being helped by the technology, rather than just saying, hey, you technology take care of this. It's how the technology can help scale, human expertise, how it can help scale the human qualities that we have. It can handle some of the basic tasks so that we can focus on being better humans. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're in a very cool space. It's just making sure that people are along for the ride.
Right. Right. Ah, this is such a great interview. I do have a random question for you. Have you
Sure.
named your avatar?
Yeah, oddly enough, do you mean so for those who are listening, my company has allowed me to clone myself,
Yeah.
and so I use that a lot for work, where it's me but speaking in 150 different languages. So I have named my avatar Manny, and I have another one who's in a different dress called Alejandro, which is after one of my friends, Manny.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because I think I saw it was a clip of a video and it said,
Yeah.
I think it said Kevin twice, or it didn't have a name or something. I don't think you didn't have a name, but your face was on there twice, and which was the real Kevin?
Exactly. Yeah.
I was like,
I
oh, it's
promise
definitely
I'm a real
this one, and
person.
then I was like, well, maybe not. I don't really know. So yeah, it's good. It's made well.
All right, I'll pass that on to the people who made it but thank you for your kind words.
Yeah. And if people want to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Sure. So the easiest way is to find me on LinkedIn. So if you just type Kevin Alster, go ahead and I'm always happy to have a chat about AI and AI avatars. But yeah, just come find me.
Perfect. All right. I'll link that in the show notes. Thank you, Kevin.
Sounds good. You are welcome. It was wonderful to chat to you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the AI Más Podcast. This one was a lot of fun for me. And like I said, we had a really big laugh at the beginning before we started recording. And then afterwards, Kevin mentioned that my energy changed drastically from like a lot of energy. And then I got really calm. And I was like, I don't know if I want that though. I don't know if I want to go from my silly self to serious quiet. So in my next episode, I tried to be more myself and try to be more silly. So hopefully you'll see more of that in the coming episodes. And thank you to Kevin for pointing that out to me, because I didn't even notice I was doing it. So yeah, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing and asking questions, sending me voice notes, writing comments. All of that just makes me so happy. So again, thank you. I'm really excited for the upcoming episodes. You're really going to enjoy it. Thank you, everyone. Until next time. Bye.